FM News on point.
For joining us, let's take a quick look at the news. I'm Lynn Komjisha. The Electoral Commission is to conduct free nominations for Masaka City Woman Mayor of Parliament following the death of NRM candidate Kasim Uganda. Uganda died in the morning at Aga Khan Hospital. She was rushed after experiencing breathing complications. The chairman of the Electoral Commission, Simon Mujenyi-Byabakama, says the commission will also print new ballot papers for the same position and others that where fresh nominations were held following the death of some candidates.
By the way, since nominations, we have experienced a number of deaths of our candidates. You remember in Kamuli, Honorable Tongola passed on, we had to arrange for fresh nominations. Under other lower electoral positions, because the law says for as long as one dies before nomination, before polling, then the Electoral Commission must organize fresh nominations. But that is now more extra cost on the part of the Electoral Commission. We have to print these ballot papers, but we cannot print them outside, because you cannot take just one ballot paper to print outside. It's costly in terms of flight, in terms of so we are going to find ways and means of filling this gap or these gaps of the departed candidates and see how we proceed.
Kampala Deputy RCC in charge of Kawempe Municipality, Hussein Hudu, has written to the Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Simon Mujenyi-Byabakama, seeking a ban on what he called oversized political meetings by the opposition. Hudu noted the exponential COVID-19 cases in the country are partly blamed on the violation of the SOPs by opposition politicians. He said the EC must come out and stop them or they act as security forces.
And for emphasis, as head of security in Kawempe Division, I am going to rally my team not to allow rallies in Kawempe Division. We are not going to allow innocent people to lose lives. We are not going to allow Ugandans to succumb to COVID-19 because of selfishness of some political leaders. We are not.
Workers under their respective unions have tasked the bosses to implement Workers' Compensations Act 2006. These workers, who included the medical doctors, teachers, miners, among others, have accused their bosses for denying them the right to compensation over the damages they get on duty. During an engagement with all stakeholders to share ideas on how to improve their working standards, Dr. Akwaro Buku, who represented the doctors, noted that all workers are entitled to compensation over damages they get while on duty, like sickness, accidents, among others, as compared to the level of damages caused.
We need the Workers' Compensation Act to be implemented. We also need that this is extended to other work spaces in the private sector especially, because the private sector is quiet. Very few people speak for the private sector. You lose a job and so on and so forth. Very many people have got injured workers. They are in many of these factories and they are not compensated. You go to a chemical factory, the employer is supposed to give you protection, for example, an N95 mask.
In sports news, KCCA junior team striker Oscar Mao scored a hat-trick as Uganda Cubs silenced rivals Kenya in the Sekafa Under-17 Championship at Umuganda Stadium in Rubavu, Rwanda. The prolific striker scored in 7th, 52nd and 54th minute before Travis Mutiaba and Ronald Madoy added a goal each. The win sends Uganda to the semis before facing Ethiopia on Friday in their last Group A game. The two finalists of the ongoing tourney will qualify to the AFCON Under-17 Championship in March in Morocco. In other news this evening, the government in the Democratic Republic of Congo has announced that a curfew will be imposed from 2100 to 500 after, from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. after a spike in cases of COVID-19. The restriction will start Friday. DR Congo's Communications Minister, Jolino Makelele, announced these among new measures, including schools closing earlier for the Christmas holiday, a ban on ceremonies before barriers, and a ban on public gatherings of more than 10 people. The Central African country has seen a spike in a number of new cases since the beginning beginning of December, with an average of 100 new cases daily in the capital, Kinshasa, the epicenter of the pandemic. The health ministry announced on Wednesday that a record 345 people had tested positive the previous day. More than 14,000 people have tested positive for COVID-19, and more than 250 of these have died in the country since the pandemic started. That was the news.
XFM News on point.